The first thing that you should never do at work is gonna be one that you might not like me for saying. And trust me, I wish it was different, but I need to tell you how it is. Flashy designer logos have no place at work. You know the ones I'm talking about, the big, audacious logos that scream, "This costs a lot of money." It doesn't matter if you just love a luxury moment, you have the resources, and invest in those pieces with intention. Because your coworkers' messed up money mindsets are going to come into play, and that's going to create a problematic perception issue for you. And of course, they're not going to say it to your face. They're going to say it behind your back, like I've heard more times than I could count. Especially if you're a young professional female. A lot of people could come in with their attitudes that you're unwise with your money. They'll think that you can't afford it, that you're just running up your credit card debt because you're so immature, or that you just have low impulse control, and this is showing how your low impulses are going to lead to bad decision quality at work. I know it doesn't make sense, but this is an actual thing that people say, so we need to deal with it. On the flip side, I've also heard conversations where they think that person has enough money.
If you can afford that Chanel bag, you don't need a pay raise.
And this is a particular problem if it's your boss saying it, since they're going to control how big your increase is. People aren't just weird about money, they're weird about demonstrations surrounding money and wealth and whatnot. That all said, if you're a designer enthusiast, I personally love luxury labels. You can still wear them to work. What I would suggest is just following a couple of parameters. So first, when you are wearing logos, err towards the more subtle logo. You can also opt for unbranded, logo-free pieces. There are a lot of designer pieces that you can invest in and fully enjoy in the office with no one being any wiser. There is one exception that I would put into this rule, is that if there is a level of logos being status quo, or there are certain status quo pieces, then this advice really wouldn't apply. For example, if you're a New York City corporate girly, you either have the Louis Vuitton Neverfull or the YSL Sac de Jour, or you have both. And because these are bags that everybody has, they kind of end up blending in. So even with an LV logo all over the place, those I don't think are a big deal. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think. Now, the next thing that you should never do at work will apply to everyone. Every industry, every job, every level of employment. Do not get tipsy with your team. Drinking culture has really become embedded in workplace culture, especially within certain industries. Like, I come from the tech industry, and in particular the startup space, where having a beer keg on hand is one of the employee benefits. And in addition to a game of beer pong at the end of the day, informal happy hours after work and formal team events all tend to have a lot of alcohol. And everyone's enjoying it, so why shouldn't you? Well, have you ever been to an event where one of your coworkers was stumbling and slurring and kind of made a big embarrassment of themselves? Would you want to be that person? Probably not, because that person is going to have some reputation rehab that they need to do in order to be taken seriously by everyone again. There's a few things that you can do to avoid making this mistake at work and have people not even notice it. Because unfortunately, too often, if everyone else is enjoying drinks, there can be a lot of pressure for you as well. First, know what your limits are. For me, it's 1 because I am a complete lightweight, and if I have any more than 1, I'm probably gonna say something that I wouldn't necessarily say anyways, because the whole inhibition thing. Once you reach your limit, just stick to non-alcoholic beverages, or just walk around with the same drink the whole night. People will not notice. In fact, when I was pregnant, I went to a team event and I didn't want people to know I wasn't drinking because I didn't want to explain the whole pregnancy thing yet. So I got the bartender on my side, explained the situation, and told him that no matter what I ordered, to just pour me a Diet Coke. And he did, and no one noticed at all. Of course, you can also just say that you don't want to have any more drinks or don't want to drink. That is totally okay too. And another thing that can be very helpful, especially if in your workplace culture, these events kind of get really messy as the night goes on, set a time where you're going to leave by. Whether you say you have to wake up early because you have spinning class or plans with other friends you need to get to, exiting by a certain time can also really help you here. And then you don't need to deal with a hangover or anxiety the next day. Not overindulging at team events is going to help you avoid this third mistake. And the third thing that you should never do at work: overshare. I know this is something a lot of you have struggled with based on comments in my other videos. For starters, when you overshare at work, you can become the subject of toxic office gossip. You need to assume that if you tell one coworker about something, all of your coworkers are going to know about it and they're going to have conversations about it because they're bored and they have nothing better to do with their time. This can also have a negative consequence on your reputation at work, depending on what this piece of information is. And finally, when you overshare, this can actually have an impact on your career trajectory. It can slow you down and make you miss career opportunities. When I've seen this, it typically comes from a good place. For example, your manager might worry about overburdening you if they know that you have some personal struggles that you're going through, so they're not going to assign you that stretch project, or they're not going to give you that promotion this round. You don't want to create any of those inadvertent biases that knowing too much can create, but also keeps people out of savior mode when ultimately these decisions should be up to you. All of that said, you work with these people every day, and you do have actual relationships with your coworkers. Some of them might even end up becoming friends. And you want to get to know them, and you want them to get to know you, because ultimately we're humans connecting in a workplace. But to avoid oversharing and end up having any negative consequences to what you talk to your coworkers about, there is one filter I think is incredibly helpful so that you don't accidentally overshare. Before you tell your coworker something, ask this question. Is this something that I want people talking about behind my back? Because if it's something that you don't mind, then go ahead, share freely. For example, is there any negative consequence to your coworkers knowing that you nerded out the night that Taylor Swift's new album came out? Because amazing. Okay, maybe it's a little bit silly, but it's probably not going to make them think anything really negative towards you, because they've probably done the same thing for their favorite singer or their favorite band at some point in their life. But do you want your coworkers having a conversation about the breakup that you're going through or the spat you're having with your sister? Probably not. The reality is that people are going to talk about you behind your back, and you want them to talk about the right things. You want them to talk about how uniquely awesome you are. You want them to talk about how helpful you are. What a great person you are. This is all part of intentional reputation management. And if that sounds really complicated, I promise you it's not. On that note, I need to shamelessly plug my book that's coming out in January, Career Glow Up. It's available for pre-order right now, and it's going to help you uncover your UAQ, create rewarding relationships, strategic high impact, everything you need to know to be ridiculously successful at work. You can find where to pre-order it at careerglowupbook.com. Hint, Amazon is a thing. In addition to finding out how to claim your pre-order bonus, because if you're pre-ordering, I don't want you to wait to start glowing up your career. I want you to start today, so I have something really special for you. So go and check it out. Now, we really need to talk about the 4th thing you should never do at work, but you're doing it regularly. Don't complain at work. Don't complain about your boss. Don't complain about your coworkers. Don't complain about your clients. Don't complain about anything or anyone. If you work at a fantastic company with exclusively phenomenal people, this is not going to be a problem. No, everyone has their days. But complaining is so commonplace, and it's very easy to do. While I'm a fan of having an occasional rant, if you are complaining at work, you are amplifying and even creating a negative work environment. Because complaining is negative energy, and it's never going to be just you complaining. When you complain about your boss to your coworker is going to complain about your boss to you. Then you're going to complain about something else, and then it ends up just being a bunch of complaining. Think about it. When you have complained or had one of those complaining conversations, did you actually leave the situation feeling better? You probably felt worse at the end of it, because now were you not only burdened with the thing that was stressful or frustrating for you, your coworker was complaining back at you, further burdening and further frustrating you. So while complaining in the act of itself is releasing dopamine, that's gonna burn off and leave you in a bad spot real fast. It can also create relationship dynamics that are based on complaining. Trauma bonding is a thing, and it's not a good thing. You don't want the basis of the relationships that you have at work to be on complaining and hating what you do, or hating your job, or hating your boss. It'll make you hate those things more. And of course, this can make the situation worse, because when you're complaining to your coworkers about your boss and nitpicking Nick overhears, he's gonna throw you right under the bus, run to your boss, and tell them all about how you're complaining to make himself look good, causing more problems for you, like a very awkward conversation with your manager and having to salvage that relationship, which you could have completely avoided by not complaining to your coworkers indiscriminately. That said, humans are not meant to bottle up emotions, and when you're frustrated, sometimes you need to vent, and a rant can be very necessary. So instead of complaining to your coworkers about all of the things, what I suggest is trying to find people outside of your office that aren't going to amplify it. They're not going to complain back at you. They won't elaborate on all the additional reasons why your boss is such a jerk, because they don't know your boss. Or if you're complaining to your work bestie, come to an agreement that one of you is frustrated and venting, that the other person is in listening and validating mode and not amplifying. I'm also a huge fan of having parameters. For years, I have had rules about how long I'm allowed to dwell about something. The answer is 7 days. But in times in my career when I would come home complaining, ranting from work, I ended up putting time limits on it, such as you get 10 minutes to complain, and if that's all you need, that's the space, and let it all out. But then it's time to talk about something completely different or to move into solution mode. And if you keep on complaining about the same thing or the same person or the same situation all of the time, then you need to own up to the fact that you need to look at what the real problem is in that situation. And complaining is not going to solve it. Is it time to move up in the organization or transition teams? Or maybe is it time to find a new job? These are all in the realm of possibilities. This brings me to the most important thing that you should never do at work, and that's avoid office politics. Question for you. When I say office politics, what do you immediately think of? This is something we really need to talk about because the mindset around office politics is generally the biggest prohibitor that gets in people's way of fully leveraging corporate politics. Because when you think of office politics, it's probably not a good thing. You're thinking about backstabbing coworkers, your boss who is sabotaging you, the empire building leader who's just doing things to grab at power that they don't deserve. It doesn't have a lot of positive connotations for people. On the flip side, a lot of ambitious professionals that I speak to when I say office politics just get flustered. It seems really complicated. They don't know how to navigate office politics. And this was very true for me earlier in my career. It was when I was talking to several of my mentors and people whose career trajectory I really wanted to emulate that I realized that the key to that success was in mastering office politics. Because ultimately, office politics really comes down to human interaction. Office politics is how you create mutually rewarding relationships. It's how you're able to increase your impact and your influence in the organization. And it's actually really key in avoiding a lot of the nasty office politics that you want to avoid. While I used to think that office politics was incredibly complicated, the more I learned about it, I realized it's shockingly simple to master. In fact, it's so simple, I want you to go to this video right now to get started. See you there, bestie.